Titular. Get on your knees and lick this coffee off the floor. You filthy black rat!
Loretta Iverson froze. 58 years old, 22 years cleaning that building. The coffee wasn't even hers. Gregory Whitmore had just thrown his cup at the wall because his assistant got the order wrong.
Mr. Whitmore, please. I'll clean it right up with the mop.
I said lick it, you're disgusting! Even your skin looks dirty.
12 employees stood in that lobby. Nobody said a word. Loretta knelt slowly. Her knees cracked against the marble. A tear dropped. She wiped it away with her sleeve. Gregory smirked and walked off. He had exactly 6 hours left as CEO, and the woman he just called filthy was about to end him. Let me tell you about Loretta Iverson before that morning. Because to understand what happened next, you have to understand who was actually kneeling on that floor. Loretta woke up every weekday at 4:30 in the morning. Not 4:31, not 4:29, 4:30 sharp, the way her mother had taught her in 1974, in a small house in Birmingham, Alabama. She lived alone in a one-bedroom rent-stabilized apartment in Mount Vernon, just north of the Bronx. The radiator clanked. The window stuck. The fridge buzzed at night. But the walls were covered in photographs. Her wedding photo from 1989. Her son, Elijah, in a graduation cap. Her daughter, Amara, holding her law school diploma. And right in the middle, the biggest frame of all, a man in a New York City Fire Department uniform, smiling like he owned the sun. James Iverson. Her husband for 27 years, killed in the line of duty on August 22, 2016, when he ran into a burning warehouse in Queens to pull 3 children out alive. He pulled all 3 out. He didn't make it back for the 4th trip. Loretta has been a widow for 9 years, and every single morning at 4:30, she still reaches over to his side of the bed before she remembers. Then she gets up. She makes coffee in a chipped mug that says, "World's Okayest Mom," a joke gift from Elijah when he was 16. She reads one page of a worn leather journal. We'll get back to that journal. Trust me. She catches the 5:42 bus to the 2 train, the 2 train to the shuttle, and walks 4 blocks to a glass tower in Midtown Manhattan with the words, Ashford Whitmore Capital Group, carved into the granite above the doors. Total commute time, 94 minutes each way. She's done this commute approximately 5,280 times. Her hourly wage in March 2025 was $19.40. No health insurance worth mentioning, no retirement plan. The night shift differential she used to count on got restructured away in 2022. Loretta cleaned floors 38 through 42, the executive floors. The floors where the men in suits made decisions worth billions of dollars between sips of espresso. She knew every one of them by name. Not one of them knew hers. To them, she was just the cleaning lady, sometimes that woman, once, memorably, the help. But here's the thing they didn't know. Loretta Iverson noticed everything, every slur whispered in a hallway, every inappropriate joke at the water cooler. Every time a black analyst was passed over for a promotion she earned 3 times, every time a Latina assistant was asked to smile more, every time a junior associate cried in the bathroom because someone had called her something cruel. Loretta noticed, and Loretta wrote it down. In a small leather notebook, every single day, for 22 years. Now let me tell you about the other man on that marble floor. Gregory Whitmore, 52 years old, 3rd-generation wealth. His grandfather bought into the firm in 1962. His father expanded it. Gregory inherited the corner office at age 34 without ever once having to interview for it. Gregory lived in a penthouse on Central Park West, 12,000 square feet, 3 terraces, a wine cellar with bottles older than most of his employees. He'd been divorced twice. He had 2 children he hadn't seen in 3 years, both at Swiss boarding schools that cost more per semester than Loretta made in a decade. He was famous on the executive floors for 3 things. Number 1, he kept a crystal decanter on his desk engraved with his initials in 24-karat gold. Number 2, he had personally signed off on a policy banning custodial staff from using the main elevators during business hours, meaning between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., when normal humans like to ride elevators. And number 3, he called black employees the help, even when they were vice presidents with MBAs from Wharton. Once, in a Monday morning executive meeting, he pointed at a junior analyst named Tasha Williams, black, Howard graduate, 3 years at the firm, and said in front of 14 people, "Sweetheart, I asked for the real analyst. Go get me a grown-up." Tasha quit the next week. HR buried it. Margaret Caldwell, the HR director, has tried to file a formal complaint about Gregory 14 separate times since 2019. All 14 disappeared into a folder labeled pending review. Margaret stopped trying after the 11th. She started documenting instead. We'll get back to Margaret, too. Now here's where the contrast hits the bone. While Gregory was eating 300 $10 tasting menus at Le Bernardin and complaining the wine wasn't chilled to exactly 54 degrees, Loretta was bringing her lunch in a reused plastic grocery bag because the cafeteria charged $14 for a sandwich. While Gregory was flying private to Aspen with his girlfriend half his age, Loretta was riding the bus home at 11 p.m., reading her husband's old letters by phone flashlight. While Gregory was screaming at his assistant for ordering a Macon instead of a Cayenne, Loretta was on her hands and knees scrubbing chewing gum off the marble floor he walked across, without ever once looking down. But here's the part nobody knew. Loretta wasn't just a cleaning lady. I want you to lean in for this one. After James died in 2016, Loretta did something nobody expected. She used part of his pension and the FDNY settlement to enroll, quietly, anonymously, in a paralegal certificate program at a community college in the Bronx. Night classes, 3 nights a week, after her cleaning shift. She graduated with honors in 2019. Then she enrolled in online pre-law courses at an accredited university. Then she started studying for the LSAT. She scored in the 91st percentile on her first practice test. She never took the real one. She never went to law school. But for 9 years, every morning before her shift, Loretta Iverson read case law on the bus. She knew her rights. She knew everyone else's rights. And she knew exactly what 22 years of documented racial harassment in a leather notebook was worth in a court of law. She just hadn't decided yet when to use it. Until that morning. Now let me tell you about her 2 children. Because this is where the story gets dangerous for Gregory Whitmore in ways he could not possibly imagine. Amara Iverson, 29 years old, graduated top of her class from Columbia Law School in 2022. Currently clerking for a federal judge in the Southern District of New York, married to Vincent Holloway, a civil rights attorney at one of the most aggressive litigation firms in Manhattan. Elijah Iverson, 26 years old, graduated from NYU Law in 2024. Currently an assistant district attorney at the Manhattan DA's office, assigned to the Public Integrity Unit. Loretta had raised 2 lawyers, by herself, while cleaning floors. She never once told anyone at Ashford Whitmore Capital that her children existed, not once in 9 years. They asked about her family exactly 0 times. To them, she was a mop. And mops don't have daughters who clerk for federal judges. Mops don't have sons who prosecute white-collar crime. Mops don't have leather notebooks full of evidence. But this one did. Now let me tell you about one more person before we go back to the lobby. His name was Daniel Brooks, 31 years old, hired in compliance just 3 weeks before that morning. Black, quiet, sharp eyes. His mother cleaned offices in Atlanta for 30 years. On Daniel's first day at Ashford Whitmore, he walked past Loretta in the hallway and said good morning. She blinked, stopped, stared at him. Then she smiled, a small, tired, beautiful smile, and said, "Good morning, sweetheart. Welcome aboard." He was the first person in 3 years to greet her like a human being. Daniel didn't forget, and on the morning of March 11th, 2025, when Daniel Brooks walked out of the elevator on the 41st floor and saw what Gregory Whitmore was doing to the woman who had welcomed him on his first day, he reached into his pocket and pressed record. Let's go back to that morning. 8:38 a.m., Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Gregory Whitmore stepped out of the private executive elevator on the 41st floor holding a paper cup of coffee. It was the wrong coffee. His assistant, a terrified 23-year-old named Caitlin, had ordered him a flat white with oat milk instead of a cortado with whole milk. A $4 mistake. Gregory took one sip, made a face like he'd swallowed battery acid, and threw the cup at the wall behind the reception desk. The cup exploded. Hot coffee splattered across the marble floor, the cream-colored wallpaper, and the bottom of a $40,000 abstract painting his interior designer had picked out in 2021. Caitlin started crying. Gregory didn't look at her. He looked around the lobby for someone else to punish. That's when he saw Loretta. She was on floor 39, but the walkie clipped to her belt crackled to life 2 seconds later. "Maintenance to 41, spill in executive lobby, now." Loretta sighed, closed her eyes for 1 second, picked up her cart. She rode the service elevator, the one Gregory had banned her from leaving during business hours, and arrived on the 41st floor at exactly 8:41 a.m. She wheeled the cart out, took one look at the mess, and reached for her mop. "Don't." Gregory's voice. She turned around slowly. "Sir?" "Don't use the mop. The mop's filthy, just like everything you touch." Loretta blinked. She'd heard cruel things in this building before. She'd written down hundreds of them. But there was something different about Gregory's voice this morning. He'd had a bad weekend. His ex-wife's lawyer had filed something nasty on Friday. His daughter had hung up on him on Sunday. His Monday board meeting had gone badly. And here, in front of him, was a black woman holding a mop. Perfect. "Get on your knees and lick this coffee off the floor, you filthy black rat." The lobby went silent. 12 people were standing in that lobby. A junior analyst named Evan holding a folder. 2 interns from finance with their badges still crooked. A senior VP named Patricia, mid-sip on her own coffee. Caitlin, the assistant, still sniffling. 3 traders from the 8th floor who'd come up to deliver something. A receptionist named Brittany. 2 consultants from McKinsey in identical navy suits, and 1 new compliance hire named Daniel Brooks, standing just behind a potted ficus near the elevator bank. 12 people. Nobody moved. "Mr. Whitmore, please," Loretta said softly. "I'll clean it right up with the mop. Give me 2 minutes." "I said, lick it." "Sir, You're disgusting. Even your skin looks dirty. Did your mother forget to teach you how to bathe? Or did she forget you in the dirt where she found you?" A junior intern actually gasped. Patricia, the senior VP, looked down at her phone and pretended to read an email. One of the McKinsey consultants smirked. And then, and I want you to remember this, somebody laughed. A short, nervous, cruel little laugh. Loretta's hands started shaking. 22 years of mornings. 22 years of silence. 22 years of being invisible. And in this moment, she felt something her mother had told her about exactly once, back in Birmingham in 1974, when Loretta was 7 years old, and a white woman at a grocery store had called her something ugly. Her mother had knelt down, looked her daughter dead in the eye, and said, "Dignity isn't something they give you, baby. It's something you carry in." Loretta heard her mother's voice as clearly as if she were standing right there in that lobby. She knelt down slowly. Her right knee cracked against the marble, then her left. The arthritis she'd been hiding from her supervisor for 2 years sent a white-hot bolt up her thigh. She picked up a rag from her cart. She started wiping the coffee. A single tear dropped onto the marble. She wiped that away, too. Gregory smirked. "Good girl. That's where you belong." He turned around and walked toward his office. Behind the potted ficus, Daniel Brooks's phone was still recording. But Daniel wasn't the only one. The security desk in the corner of the lobby had 4 cameras. 2 of them had a clear angle. And there was one more recording nobody knew about yet. Because on the 8th floor, in a small private office most employees didn't know existed, a 72-year-old woman named Eleanor Ashford Brooks had been watching the lobby cameras live for 3 weeks. Eleanor Ashford Brooks watched the screen. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She didn't reach for the phone. She just watched. 72 years old, silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, reading glasses on a gold chain around her neck. The chairman of the board of Ashford Whitmore Capital Group, and the granddaughter of the man whose name was on the building. She owned 38% of the company, which meant she could fire anyone she wanted, including Gregory. She'd been waiting 3 years for a moment like this one. She picked up her landline, dialed 4 digits. "Margaret, come to the 8th floor, now. Bring the file." She hung up. Then she pressed pause on the security footage, rewound 30 seconds, and watched Gregory call Loretta a filthy black rat one more time. She didn't flinch. She just whispered, very softly, "Got you." Meanwhile, on the 41st floor, Loretta finished cleaning the coffee. She stood up slowly. Her knees screamed. She gathered her cart. She walked back to the service elevator without looking at a single person. 12 employees watched her leave. Not one said a word. She rode the elevator down to the basement, wheeled her cart into the custodial closet, sat down on an overturned mop bucket, and pressed her palms against her eyes. She didn't cry. She'd cried enough for one morning. Then she pulled out her flip phone, the one Elijah had begged her to upgrade for years, and called the only number she trusted with this kind of moment. It rang twice. "Mama?" "Hi, baby." Amara Iverson, 30 blocks south, sitting in a federal courthouse during a recess. "Mama, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice." Amara had heard her mother lie exactly twice in 29 years. Both times had been about money. This was the 3rd time. "Mama, what happened?" A long pause. "I'll tell you tonight, baby. I love you." "Mama, I love you. Bye." She hung up. Then she sat very still for a full minute. Then she opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she hadn't called in 3 years. Eleanor. Her thumb hovered. She didn't press it. Not yet. 2 floors above, Daniel Brooks was standing in the men's room with his phone in his hand. He watched the video he'd just recorded. 41 seconds. Crystal clear. You could see Gregory's face. You could hear every single word. You could see Loretta on her knees. Daniel's hands were shaking. He thought about his mother in Atlanta. He thought about every Christmas she'd worked through. He thought about the times she'd come home with bleach burns on her wrists because some lawyer had made her scrub a toilet without gloves. He opened his email. He typed 3 names into the to line. Margaret Caldwell, HR Director, the General Counsel's office, and one more, an external email he wasn't supposed to have but had memorized from his first week of compliance training. Anonymous tip line. State of New York Attorney General's Office. He attached the video. Subject line. Hostile workplace incident, 41st floor, 8:42 a.m., March 11th, 2025. Video evidence attached. He hit send at 8:58 a.m., 16 minutes after Loretta had knelt on the marble. He walked back to his desk like nothing had happened. Margaret Caldwell got the email at 8:59. She watched the video. She watched it again. Then she stood up, walked out of her office, took the elevator to the 8th floor, and knocked on a door most employees didn't know existed. "Come in, Margaret." Eleanor was already pouring 2 cups of tea. "You saw it?" Margaret asked. "I watched it live. Are we doing this?" Eleanor picked up her teacup. "Margaret, I have a folder in my desk that's 3 years thick. I have 14 of your buried complaints. I have 11 separate witness statements I've collected myself. And now I have a video of Gregory Whitmore calling a 58-year-old grandmother a black rat in front of 12 employees." She took a sip. "Yes, we're doing this. Today." Margaret sat down slowly. "What do you need from me?" "Get every senior VP into the 44th floor conference room by 2 p.m. Tell them it's about the pension fund contract. Don't mention Gregory." "And Gregory?" Eleanor smiled for the first time in 3 weeks. "Gregory is going to walk into that room thinking he's getting a promotion." But here's the thing about men like Gregory Whitmore. They don't wait for the storm. They make it. By 10:15 a.m., Gregory had already sensed something was off. His assistant, Caitlin, wouldn't make eye contact. 2 senior VPs walked past his office without their usual fake smiles. The receptionist hung up the phone too fast when he approached. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew something was. So he did what bullies always do when they smell danger. He attacked first. He picked up his phone and called the head of facilities. "Get me the supervisor of the night cleaning crew. Right now." 3 minutes later, a terrified man named Brian Walsh was on the line. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore." "One of your cleaning women. The black one. Older. 41st floor this morning." "Loretta? Loretta Iverson?" "I don't care what her name is. She was insubordinate. She refused a direct request. She was rude to executive staff. I want her terminated by noon." "Sir, she's been with us for 22 years. She's never had a single—" "Did I ask for her resume, Brian? I said terminate her by noon, or I'll terminate you by 12:01. Click. At 11:48 a.m., Brian Walsh sent Loretta a text message. "Loretta, I'm so sorry. I have no choice. Please clean out your locker by end of day. HR will mail your final check." Loretta was sitting on the same overturned mop bucket where she'd called her daughter. She read the text. She read it again. 22 years, ended in 8 sentences, by a man who couldn't even bring himself to call her on the phone. She didn't cry. She just stood up slowly, walked to her locker, and started taking things out. A photo of Amara at her law school graduation. A photo of Elijah at his bar swearing in. A small wooden cross her mother had given her in 1974. A laminated photo of James in his fire department uniform. A worn paperback copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God. And the leather notebook. She held the notebook for a long moment. 22 years of silence. 22 years of writing things down because she had nowhere else to put them. She slid it into her purse. She walked out of the basement. She rode the bus home in the middle of the day for the first time since 2003. The apartment in Mount Vernon was quiet. Loretta sat down at her kitchen table without taking off her coat. She placed the notebook in front of her. Then she placed something else next to it. The leather journal she read every morning. James's journal. The one he'd kept for her in the months before he died. She opened it to a page she'd read maybe 100 times. July 16th, 2016, 1 month before the warehouse fire. Lori, if something ever happens to me on the job, promise me one thing. Don't let them make you small. I know how the world looks at women who look like you. I know what it does to a person to be invisible for 40 years. But you, Lori, you are the biggest woman I have ever known. The day I met you in 1988, you walked into that diner like you owned the city. Don't ever forget that walk. Love, your James. Loretta closed her eyes. The tears came slowly. Not the dramatic kind. The quiet kind. The kind that women her age cry when they've been holding something in for too long. Her shoulders shook. She put her face in her hands. For the first time in 9 years, she let herself fall apart. Out loud, to an empty kitchen, she whispered, "I'm tired, James. I'm so tired." The radiator clanked. Nothing answered. She stayed like that for a long time. Then she did something I want you to pay attention to. She opened her laptop. She started typing an email to Margaret Caldwell. "Dear Miss Caldwell, I understand I've been let go. I want you to know I won't make any trouble. I just want my job back. I'll apologize to Mr. Whitmore. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Please. I have rent due on the 1st. Respectfully, Loretta Iverson." Her cursor hovered over the send button. For a long moment, she sat there. 22 years. A flip phone with no health insurance behind it. A daughter and son who had built lives so far above her she could barely follow them on Instagram. A husband who had died saving children he'd never met. And a leather notebook full of things nobody had ever asked her about. Her finger hovered. And then she heard her mother's voice again, the way she'd heard it in the lobby that morning. "Dignity isn't something they give you, baby. It's something you carry in." She moved her cursor. She didn't press send. She pressed delete. The whole email vanished. She closed the laptop. She whispered, very softly, "No more apologizing, James. No more." Then she opened her purse. She pulled out the leather notebook. She flipped to the very back, to a manila envelope she had taped inside the cover 9 years ago. She had not opened it once in 9 years. She slid it out. Her hands were steady now. She opened the envelope and pulled out 3 documents. The first was a photocopied internal safety audit dated April 12, 2016. The second was a New York City Fire Department incident report dated August 22, 2016. The third was a single post-it note in her own handwriting dated August 28, 2016, 6 days after James's funeral. The post-it said only, "Not yet, but someday." She stared at the documents for a long time. Then she picked up her flip phone. This time, she didn't call Amara. She scrolled past Amara's name. She scrolled to a contact she'd saved 9 years ago and never once dialed. Eleanor. Her thumb pressed the green button. It rang once. "Loretta?" Eleanor's voice, calm, like she'd been waiting. "Eleanor, it's time." A pause on the other end. "I was hoping you'd call today. He had you fired, didn't he? At 11:48. Loretta, listen to me very carefully. You bring everything you have to the 44th floor at 2 p.m. Bring your daughter. Bring your son. Bring the notebook. Bring the envelope. Bring all of it." "Eleanor, are you sure?" "Loretta, I have been sure for 3 years. Today is the day." The line went quiet. Then Eleanor said one more thing. "And Loretta, wear something nice. I want every single one of those bastards to remember what you look like, standing up." Now, I have to stop and tell you something. Because you might be wondering, who is Eleanor? And why is a 58-year-old cleaning lady on a first-name basis with the chairman of the board of a $3 billion firm? Here's the answer. 9 years ago, 2 weeks after James died, a 63-year-old woman in a navy blue suit walked into the basement of the Ashford Whitmore building. She walked past every supervisor. She found the custodial closet. She knocked on the door. When Loretta opened it, the woman said, "My name is Eleanor Ashford Brooks. My husband and your husband served on the same volunteer fire ladder in 1994. James pulled my husband out of a building in Brooklyn that should have killed him. I read about your husband in the paper this morning. I am so sorry. I came to tell you something." She placed a business card on Loretta's cart. "My family owns this building. If anyone in this company ever treats you with anything less than complete respect, you call this number. Do you understand me?" Loretta had stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" Eleanor had looked her in the eye. "Because my mother cleaned this building in 1968, and nobody ever told her she had a phone number to call." Then Eleanor had walked out, and for 9 years Loretta had carried that card in her wallet without ever using it. She wanted to handle her own life. She wanted to keep her dignity her own way. She wanted to teach her children that you don't need anyone's help to be somebody. But this morning, kneeling on that marble floor while a man called her a black rat, something in Loretta had broken. Or maybe something had finally healed. Either way, it was time. She called Amara, then Elijah, then Vincent. She told them all the same thing. 44th floor, 2 o'clock. Wear black. Then she went to her closet. She pulled out a dress she hadn't worn since James's funeral. Navy blue, knee length, pearl buttons. She stood in front of the mirror. For the first time in 9 years, she looked at herself and saw the woman James had married in 1989. She was not invisible anymore. 2:05 p.m., 44th floor, the big conference room, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the Hudson, the one Gregory Whitmore had ordered renovated last year for $1.4 million of company money. The one he was about to be destroyed in. He walked in at 2:04, still smelling of wine. He'd spent his lunch at Le Bernardin. $310 on a tasting menu. 2 glasses of a Burgundy he kept loudly mispronouncing. He'd posted a smug photo to his Instagram at 1:48 p.m. That photo was about to become Exhibit B. He walked into the conference room expecting 14 senior VPs, a slideshow about the New York State Pension Fund contract, and a round of applause. What he saw instead was this: Eleanor Ashford Brooks at the head of the table, Margaret Caldwell on her right, Sarah Whitaker, outside counsel, on her left, 2 independent board members on a video screen, and at the far end of the table, 3 people Gregory had never seen before in his life. A young black woman in a charcoal suit, a young black man in a navy suit, a tall black man in his early 30s holding a leather briefcase. Gregory looked around, frowned. Where's everybody else? Eleanor folded her hands. "Sit down, Gregory." "Eleanor, I was told this meeting was about—" "I said sit down." Something in her voice made him sit. The young woman in the charcoal suit stood up. "Mr. Whitmore, my name is Amara Iverson. I'm a federal court clerk for the Honorable Judge Patricia Daniels of the Southern District of New York. The woman you ordered to lick coffee off the floor this morning is my mother." Gregory's face did something complicated. "Your... what?" The young man stood up next. "My name is Elijah Iverson. I'm an assistant district attorney with the Manhattan DA's office, Public Integrity Unit. The woman you called a black rat this morning is also my mother." Gregory opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at Eleanor. "What is this?" The tall man stood up last. "My name is Vincent Holloway. I'm a partner at Holloway, Bryant & Associates. We specialize in civil rights litigation. I'm Amara's husband, and Mrs. Iverson is my client. Vincent placed the leather briefcase on the table. He clicked it open. Then he started laying things out, slowly, calmly, one piece at a time. Exhibit 1, 41-second video, recorded at 8:42 this morning by a compliance employee of you instructing my client to, quote, "Get on your knees and lick this coffee off the floor, you filthy black rat." He set the laptop on the table. He pressed play. Gregory's own voice filled the room. "Even your skin looks dirty." Eleanor watched Gregory's face the entire time the video played. She did not blink. Vincent kept going. Exhibit 2. 22 years of contemporaneous documentation by Mrs. Iverson. Dates, times, names, witnesses. 386 separate documented incidents of racial harassment, sexual harassment, and hostile workplace conduct on the executive floors. You appear personally in 81 of them. He set the leather notebook on the table. Exhibit 3. Sworn affidavits from 19 current and former custodial, security, and administrative employees of this firm, all willing to testify. He set down a stack of paper. Exhibit 4. Internal documentation from HR Director Margaret Caldwell of 14 separate, previously buried complaints against you, dating back to 2019, all formally refiled at 1:30 p.m. today. He set down another stack. Exhibit 5. The morality clause in your employment contract. Section 12, which you personally lobbied to add in 2021 to remove a black senior vice president named Alicia Green. We've reviewed it. It applies to you. Voids your severance. Voids your stock options. Voids everything. Vincent paused. That's just the civil case, Mr. Whitmore. Gregory's hands were starting to shake. What do you mean, just the civil case? Elijah stepped forward. Mr. Whitmore, the Manhattan DA's office received an anonymous tip this morning at 8:58. Within 2 hours, my supervisor opened a preliminary investigation into possible criminal civil rights violations on these premises. As the assigned ADA, I will of course be recusing myself due to family conflict, but the investigation will continue. With full cooperation from the Attorney General's office. He paused. That's also just the beginning, sir. Gregory looked around the room like a drowning man. This is insane. Eleanor, please. This is some kind of cleaning lady trying to extort. Eleanor stood up. She walked very slowly around the table until she was standing directly behind Gregory's chair. She placed both hands on his shoulders. He flinched. Gregory, she said softly, look at me. He turned his head. My mother cleaned this building in 1968. She was Irish. They called her Patty. They called her gutter trash. She came home with her hands bleeding from bleach every night for 16 years. She died at 53 of a stroke, on a bus, on her way to a third shift. I was 11. Eleanor leaned down very close to Gregory's ear. And this morning, Gregory, you called a 58-year-old grandmother a black rat on a floor my mother once scrubbed. She stood back up. You are done. Today, in this room, in front of these witnesses. Gregory's face had gone the color of skim milk. You can't fire me. The board has to vote. There are bylaws. I am the chairman of the board. I own 38% of this company. I called an emergency executive session at noon. The vote was unanimous. You're out. She turned to Margaret. Margaret, please call security. Margaret picked up the conference room phone. Send 4 officers to 44. Now. Then Vincent did one more thing. He pulled out a manila envelope. He slid it across the table to Eleanor. Mrs. Iverson asked me to give you this personally, ma'am. She said you'd know what to do with it. Eleanor opened the envelope. She pulled out the photocopied safety audit dated April 12, 2016. She read it. Her face went very still. She turned to Gregory. Gregory, do you remember signing this? He squinted. I sign hundreds of documents a year. I don't. Look at the bottom. Read the line above your signature. Gregory looked. The blood drained from his face. The line read, Recommended electrical repairs to Astoria warehouse property. Estimated cost, $86,000. Approval status, deferred. Cost prohibitive at this time. Below it, in his own handwriting, G. Whitmore, Board Liaison, April 12th, 2016. Eleanor's voice was now ice. Gregory, the Astoria warehouse caught fire on August 22, 2016. A New York City firefighter named James Iverson died in that building, saving 3 children. She paused. James Iverson was Loretta Iverson's husband. The room went silent. Gregory's mouth opened. Nothing came out. And then the conference room door opened, and Loretta walked in. She walked in slowly, navy blue dress, pearl buttons, the same dress she'd worn to bury her husband 9 years ago. Her hair was pinned back. Her shoulders were straight. Her eyes were dry. She did not look like a cleaning lady. She looked like a woman who had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Every person in the room stood up. Even the 2 board members on the video screen rose to their feet. Eleanor Ashford Brooks pulled out the chair at the head of the table. Mrs. Iverson, please. Loretta walked the length of the conference room. Her footsteps were the only sound. She sat down at the head of the table. She looked across at Gregory Whitmore. For the first time in 22 years, she looked him directly in the eye. He could not hold her gaze. Mr. Whitmore, she said softly, look at me. He didn't. Look at me. He still didn't. Look at me! His head jerked up. Loretta did not raise her voice again. She didn't need to. This morning, you told me my skin looked dirty. You told me I belonged on the floor. You told me my mother forgot me in the dirt where she found her. She paused. My mother's name was Beatrice Williams. She was a schoolteacher in Birmingham, Alabama. She marched with Dr. King in 1963. She raised 6 children on a teacher's salary. She died of pancreatic cancer in 2004, holding my hand. She paused again. My husband's name was James Iverson. He was a captain with FDNY Engine Company 219. He pulled 41 people out of burning buildings in his career. The 42nd time he went into a building, he didn't come back out. He died on August 22, 2016, saving 3 children from a warehouse fire in Queens. Her voice did not shake. That warehouse was owned by a subsidiary of this company. The fire was caused by an electrical violation that you, personally, refused to repair 4 months earlier because $86,000 was, quote, cost prohibitive. She tilted her head. My husband's life was worth $86,000 to you, Mr. Whitmore. The room was so quiet you could hear the HVAC. I have known this for 9 years. I had this document in my hands 2 weeks after the funeral. I could have destroyed you in 2016. She leaned forward slightly. But I had 2 children to raise, and I did not want my daughter's first memory of justice to be poisoned by my rage. So I waited. She paused. I waited until you gave me a reason that no jury in America would ever question. She looked around the room. This morning you gave me that reason, in front of 12 witnesses, on 3 different cameras. She looked back at Gregory. Mr. Whitmore, do you have anything to say to me? Gregory opened his mouth. His lips moved. No sound came out. He tried again. Nothing. For 6 full seconds, the third-generation heir of one of Manhattan's most powerful financial dynasties sat in a conference room with his mouth open and produced no sound at all. Loretta nodded once. That's what I thought. She turned to Eleanor. Mrs. Ashford Brooks, I'm done. Eleanor pressed a button on the conference phone. The door opened. 4 uniformed security officers walked in. Behind them, and this is the part that broke Gregory completely, were 2 NYPD detectives in plain clothes and 2 agents from the New York State Attorney General's office. Detective Howard Mason stepped forward. Gregory Whitmore, you're under arrest for criminal negligence in connection with the August 22, 2016 fatality of FDNY Captain James Iverson. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The handcuffs clicked. Gregory finally found his voice. This is insane. This is a setup. Eleanor, please. Eleanor turned her back to him. He was dragged out of the conference room, down the hallway, past the executive offices where he had ruled for 18 years, into the same service elevator he had banned the cleaning staff from using, out the loading dock, and into the back of an unmarked sedan in front of the building, where exactly 31 news photographers were already waiting. Vincent Holloway had called every major outlet in New York at 1:30 p.m. The photo ran on the front page of the New York Times the next morning. Whitmore's CEO arrested in cleaning lady's husband's death. Within 72 hours, Gregory Whitmore was indicted on 3 counts of criminal negligence resulting in death. His passport was surrendered. His personal assets were frozen. His ex-wife filed for emergency increased child support and won. The State of New York Attorney General opened a formal civil rights investigation into Ashford Whitmore Capital Group. A class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of 63 current and former employees of the firm. Vincent Holloway was lead counsel. Ashford Whitmore stock dropped 34% in 2 days. The State of New York Pension Fund, that $3.2 billion contract Gregory had been so proud of, was awarded to a competitor. Specifically, to a minority-owned firm Gregory had once tried to sabotage. Margaret Caldwell was named interim CEO, the first woman in the company's 63-year history. Daniel Brooks was promoted to Director of Corporate Ethics. He flew his mother up from Atlanta for the announcement. She cried in the elevator. And Gregory Whitmore? 8 months later, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of criminal negligence and was sentenced to 4 years in a state prison in upstate New York. He served 3. He was permanently barred from sitting on any corporate board in the United States for the rest of his life. His penthouse on Central Park West was sold to pay legal fees. His children stopped speaking to him entirely. He lives now, at age 53, in a 1-bedroom apartment in Yonkers. Sometimes he takes the bus. But that's not the part of this story I want you to remember. 3 weeks after the arrest, on a Saturday morning, Eleanor Ashford Brooks knocked on a door in Mount Vernon. Loretta opened it in her bathrobe. Eleanor was holding a manila folder. May I come in, Loretta? They sat at the kitchen table. Eleanor opened the folder. This is the settlement, approved by the board this morning. It is non-negotiable from our side. You can absolutely negotiate it higher if you wish, but I would advise you to take it as offered. She slid the document across. Loretta read the number. $28 million. She read it again. She put down the paper. Eleanor, I can't. $8 million for 22 years of underpayment and racial discrimination. $12 million for the wrongful death of your husband. $8 million in punitive damages and emotional distress. And, Eleanor pulled out a second document, 2% of the company, in your name. Approximate value $18 million, plus a permanent seat on the board with full voting rights and an annual salary of $400,000. Loretta stared at her. Eleanor, why? Eleanor reached across the table and took Loretta's hand. Because my mother cleaned this building in 1968, and nobody ever wrote her a check. I can't fix what happened to her, but I can fix what happened to you. Loretta's eyes filled. For the first time since the morning on the marble floor, she let herself cry in front of someone other than James's photograph. Eleanor handed her a tissue. They sat at the kitchen table for a long time. 6 months later, Amara Iverson was nominated by the President of the United States to a federal judgeship in the Southern District of New York. She was confirmed by the Senate 84-16. At 30 years old, she became one of the youngest black federal judges in American history. Elijah Iverson was promoted to Deputy Chief of the Public Integrity Unit. 3 years later, he was appointed to a New York State Supreme Court justiceship at the age of 29. The Iverson siblings were profiled in Time magazine. The cover photo showed them standing on either side of their mother on the steps of the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. The headline read, "The Woman Who Raised 2 Judges While Cleaning Floors." Loretta took $30 million of her settlement and founded the James Iverson Foundation, a 6-story building in Lower Manhattan. Free legal services for custodial workers, domestic workers, and service employees. Scholarships for the children of immigrant labor families. A 24-hour hotline for workplace harassment victims. She hired all 19 custodial workers who had signed affidavits against Gregory. She paid them 4 times what Ashford Whitmore had paid them. She made Margaret Caldwell the foundation's executive board chair. She made Daniel Brooks her chief operations officer. And every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., Loretta Iverson and Eleanor Ashford Brooks have tea together in Loretta's office on the 6th floor. 2 old women, one black, one white, both daughters of women who once cleaned floors in Manhattan. Both, finally, sitting down. Now I want you to sit with something for just a second. How many Lorettas have you walked past this week? How many people on their knees, cleaning up messes they didn't make? How many invisible women carrying 22 years of notebooks nobody knows about? How many times has somebody called somebody you love a word that made your chest burn, and you stayed quiet because you thought your voice didn't matter? Let me tell you what this story is really about. It's not about Gregory. Gregory is a dime a dozen. This story is about a woman who knelt on a marble floor at 8:42 in the morning and stood up at 2:05 in the afternoon and walked into a conference room in her dead husband's favorite dress and ended a man with a single sentence. This story is about the truth her mother taught her in Birmingham in 1974. Dignity isn't something they give you, baby. It's something you carry in. So tell me in the comments below, have you ever been the person on the floor? Have you ever been the person who watched and stayed silent? Have you ever wished you could be the person who finally stood up? I read every comment, every single one. If Loretta moved you tonight, do 3 small things for me. Hit subscribe, share this video with one person who needs to hear it, and drop the word dignity in the comments so I know you're with us. Because the next Loretta is out there, and she is listening.